Maggie Hart-Stebbins, welcome to New Mexico in Focus.
Oh, it is great to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
So let's start with your office. What's the mission of the New Mexico Natural Resources Trustee?
So in 2019, Governor Lujan Grisham appointed me to be New Mexico's Natural Resources Trustee. And what our office does is we sue polluters. So when there is a release of some kind of hazardous substance into New Mexico's environment, the Environment Department plays the role of making sure that gets cleaned up to a health-based standard. Then the Office of the Natural Resources Trustee reaches out to the party that's responsible for that release of contamination, and we ask for compensation for the community for the injury that has taken place to natural resources. So natural resources, groundwater, surface water, drinking water, wildlife habitat, biota, which is any part of the natural the biological community that exists in a place. And so, we are very complementary and we partner with the Environment Department, but our role really is to make sure that New Mexicans are compensated when they have suffered a loss of access to their natural resources.
So last month your office announced a settlement involving Fort Wingate.
Correct.
With the U.S. government on behalf of the U.S. Army. And for people who might not be familiar with Fort Wingate, it's a 15,000 acre depot that the Army started using in the 19th century, used through the 90s. And I guess they're still used for missile launching activities. Right. So what is the settlement that your office was working through with the U.S. government and the Zuni tribe and the Navajo Nation?
Fort Wingate was used for decades to store munitions and destroy obsolete munitions. And so there were releases of contamination into the water, into the soil, and destruction of habitat. And so in 2008, actually, my predecessor, Jim Baca, when he was Natural Resources Trustee, he began the process of bringing a natural resources damage claim against the Army. So this started in 2008, and there was quite a bit of work done to evaluate, in partnership with the Army, actually. It was a cooperative assessment to evaluate what's the extent of the damage, and then work done to figure out what needs to be done to bring these natural resources back to the original condition. And that's our mission at ONRT, is to bring natural resources back to the condition they were in before contamination. So this work between 2008 and 2012, there was a lot of work done, again, Zuni tribe, Navajo Nation, the BIA was engaged in that, the Fish and Wildlife Service, the Forest Service, in this conversation about what has to happen to, compensate the community, bring the resources back to their original condition. In 2012, there was a consent decree that was agreed upon in principle, and so for the last many years, we have been working to get all the signatures, get that finalized, and that was filed in federal court just a couple weeks ago. So there's a 30-day public comment period, so anyone who's interested can go to our website, click on the Fort Wingate links, and see what that consent decree is. It involves a payment of about $1.4 million that will be used to compensate past costs and pay for future restoration projects.
So when I've looked through the environmental cleanup documents, there's things like explosives, perchlorates, nitrates, PCBs, pesticides, all kinds of contamination out there. How much of that has been cleaned up already, and how much is still a work in progress?
I don't know the exact numbers on that. The Environment Department, the New Mexico Environment Department, their Hazardous Waste Bureau is responsible for that element of it. Our piece is kind of separate and independent of that.
So that $1.4 million that you mentioned, what does that go toward? Because when I think of the scale of the pollution out there, that doesn't seem $1.4 million doesn't seem like enough to clean it up or fix it. So what does that $1.4 million go toward?
I think that the $1.4 million, there's about $1.2 $2 million that is for future restoration projects. And so that can be things, anything that benefits the water quality, water availability. So that can be like phreatophyte removal. It can be cutting off current sources of pollution that continue to degrade the water quality. There's about $120,000 for cultural losses. And so I think we will defer to Zuni tribe and the Navajo Nation to determine how they want that money to be used. And then there is, part of that settlement is past ONRT costs, or actually past trustee costs. So all of our co-trustees have incurred costs, and then the future costs of putting together a restoration plan.
We had talked a couple of years ago, the Pentagon had added Fort Wingate to its list of possible locations where PFAS or perm polyfluoroalkyl substances had been released. Did the Pentagon ever complete that study? Do we know if there's PFAS out there as part of the contamination?
Not to my knowledge. So the settlement agreement that we have now really covers known sources of contamination or known contamination. So PFAS, at last, to my knowledge, that determination of PFAS has not been made yet. I don't know where they are in that process, but we will always have the opportunity to go back and pursue that should PFAS be found at Fort Wingate.
Okay, that's good to know, because I was reading in the settlement that was filed in federal court, it says that parties can't sue over certain things, but so if there were additional problems, the state can kind of.
Right. This consent decree really covers the contaminants that were known, that are known as of right now.
Okay. And like you mentioned, there is a public comment period until May 2nd. We'll put that on our website as well. Your office negotiated another settlement recently. Let's talk about Gold King Mine.
So I think New Mexicans are familiar with the Gold King Mine release. So it was a release of many millions of gallons of toxic contaminants that were released outside of Silverton, then flowed down into the Animas River in New Mexico and into the San Juan, turned the rivers kind of a bright yellow color. So the state of New Mexico, and so the Attorney General, the New Mexico Attorney General, and the Environment Department brought a lawsuit against both the mining defendants, their contractors, and the mining defendants, the EPA, and their contractors. And so in January of 2021, those parties, and including ONRT, reached a settlement with the mining defendants that brought $11 million to the state of New Mexico. $1 million of that was for natural resource damages, so that came to ONRT. And just 2 weeks ago, we went through a whole public input process. We reached out to the community in the Four Corners area. How do you think that $1 million should be used? What are the projects that you feel would compensate for the injury to natural resources? And we received 4 proposals. We have enough funding to fund them all, so we're very excited. Those we have went through again public comment once we had selected the projects, and are now in the process of developing the MOAs with the project proponents to get those projects underway. So that's very exciting.
And what are some of those projects? Like what do they involve?
So we'll partner with San Juan County government on a boat ramp that will really help compensate for the loss of access to the river for the outdoor recreation industry. We will be partnering with the Hogback Chapter House to help improve their irrigation system. A partnership with Farmington, the city of Farmington, on a pavilion that will provide better conditions for their farmers market. Again, looking at how the farmers, the agriculture industry was really damaged by that release, both in terms of what happened to their fields, but also the stigma that continues to be associated with agricultural products from that area. And the fourth one, we're partnering with the San Juan Soil and Water Conservation District on a soil health project that will both improve water quality and provide a real benefit for farmers. who are participating to lower their costs and improve their soil conditions. So all 4 of those projects are really exciting, and I think we're just really eager to get started.
Well, thanks, Maggie Hart-Stebbins, for joining me and for watching out for New Mexico's natural resources.
Well, thank you, and thanks to you.